Good morning, good evening, everyone. This is Luda Kopikina with GAI Insights. Welcome to Daily AI News Review, where we mark articles essential, important, and optional, helping you find the important trends in all of the AI news that come at you every day. Today, I have John, Paul, and Ankash from our regular crew, and Alden Darazario, who is the CEO
Welcome, Alden.
of
Hey,
Custom.
thanks, Paul.
Yes, welcome, Alden. He always has wonderful angles to add to our reviews. For those of you who are joining, the links to the articles are at gaiinsights.com/articles. Please follow along and let us know what you think and whether you agree or disagree with our insights and ratings. Okay, let's start with the first one. Ankash, please.
Sure, thanks, Luda. So the first one that we have for today comes from Mistral, and Mistral has released Voxtral, its first open source AI audio model.
Yes, that's a good explanation of what's in the news here. John, what did you think?
Yeah, I give it optional this one. New language model. Yet another. Mistral seems to be doing pretty good job of creating new components of different capability, putting it out in the marketplace. As we'll see later today, it's interesting. Mistral's losing a lot of market share, compared to others. But I was going to definitely give this an optional.
Okay, Alden, what was your thoughts?
Yeah, I would even give it optional. Sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yes.
I would give it optional. And one strange thing I see is like typically when these models are released now, they are now released as like multimodal models. So it's interesting to see them doing a purely audio model. So
yeah, with good results though. This graph shows that for the price, right? They're getting a good performance. But yeah, so maybe that's what they wanted to highlight. Paul, we're going optional. What do you think?
Yeah, I think obviously everyone's designing for top of the list of benchmarks. So I think we've seen that with Grok and everyone. These guys are doing it as well. I think what's interesting on Mistral is they continue to really focus, I think, on the new product innovation side. I think less than customer, although there's been some rumors are 100 million. I know there's rumors out there that Apple may be looking at. So this wave of acqui-hires that's going on here. These guys are a very interesting candidate for that. But for AI leader, that's interesting gossip on the industry. But for AI leader, definitely optional.
Yeah.
Vivek got some comments. Yeah.
Yeah, Vivek is commenting that it's the first open source and easier and cheaper to implement. True, Vivek. However, it's like a slew of these models are out there. So, yeah, it's okay. Going optional. Ankash, okay with optional?
Yes, Luda.
Okay, optional. Let's proceed.
Okay, the next one comes from Anthropic, and Anthropic has launched finance-specific Claude with built-in data connectors, higher limits, and prompt libraries.
Okay, Alden, tell us.
So I would mark this as essential, especially for people in finance, right? If you saw what Anthropic did for coders, right, where they had Claude, which is the best coding model, you can expect that Anthropic will do similar stuff for financial, right? And they are not consumer focused, so they are very like enterprise focused. So I expect that Anthropic will, they've already integrated with all the good sources like Morningstar and FactSet and things like that. And you can expect they are also going to solve any sort of pushback in regulatory issues and things like that. So I would expect this if Anthropic does for finance what it did for coders, you can expect another Bloomberg terminal type innovation for Anthropic to happen.
Thank you, Alden. That's interesting that you give it essential. So do you think that it applies equally to AI leaders outside of finance? Do you think that's an important development?
Outside of finance, I don't think as much, for if you're outside of finance, Perplexity is also doing consumerish stuff with finance. You can go analyze your stocks, get stock information, things like that. But Anthropic will attack it purely from an enterprise perspective.
Yeah, it seems like they tied together the sources very tightly into a package that will help install in finance organizations. What did you think about this, John?
Yeah, I actually was on the other end. That was optional. I didn't see. I thought that I hear what you're saying, Alden. That when they commit to an area, they do a good job at it. Super crowded space. Not a lot of specifics in terms of things that have been implemented. The banks and the consulting companies are all building this kind of capability for themselves. In addition, so I was going to give it an optional.
I see. Well, Paul, where do you sit in this optional essential spectrum?
Yeah, I'll split the load. I'm definitely on a port, and I think there's some AI leader needs to forward to their finance people. Spreadsheets are an important area that's slowly getting better here. I do agree with Alden that where it's coming from and intense focus AWS and Anthropic have on enterprise customer use cases is notable here. I don't think it's essential yet because we don't have use cases. 3 or 4 months from now, Alden, we may be saying essential because so many people have now validated the potential. So very promising teenager.
Yeah,
right.
Totally. It needs its cursor moment, sort of like what cursor did to blow up the coding space, like that.
Right, and I think it's important for the following reason. It's a maturation of this whole industry, right? And so the people who have built, or the banks who have built their own applications, they will, if this becomes, if Anthropic's platform becomes powerful enough for them to switch, they will switch, because maintaining their own is not necessary. They can build on top of. So it's a maturation of the infrastructure and the LLM models behind it that I think this indicates. So also.
Yeah, if I were advising a bank, oh boy, I would tell them, if you're gonna, put your core silicon intelligence in the hands of somebody else, that's a really bad idea.
So you would think that they will keep building despite the Anthropic offers.
No, I think the majority of them will do what you're saying, which is why the majority of them have commodity economic returns. And it's only the brave that actually dive in and create differential advantage with technology.
Okay. All right. Putting it as important, splitting the difference here. Let's proceed. Ankash, please.
Okay, the next one comes from Meta, and it talks about Meta's new superintelligence lab and how it might be developing a closed model.
Yes. So this is actually an article in New York Times. It's a little speculative because nothing was announced by Meta yet. However, the movements within Meta are actually pretty clear. So Meta has, for some of you who don't know, that I think you all do, Meta acquired Scale AI for $14.3 billion, and the CEO of Scale AI, Alexander Wang, is going to lead this superintelligence lab. And there's great movements within Meta, vying for maybe not opening their behemoth as the next open model, but making it private. So this group run by Wang is sitting separately, siloed from the rest of the organization and working quietly. And so if this is all correct and will be really happening at Meta, it's a signal of what big signal to the whole open source movement, I think. So It's an important article.
Yeah, well, Luna, just one point of clarification. They didn't acquire them. They were using the Silicon Valley, avoid avoid the antitrust regulators thing by putting 14.3 billion in and then taking all their talent, which certainly seems to me the spirit of an acquisition. But anyway,
Right. Thank you for
I
clarifying.
don't know what they're worried about. The antitrust has been asleep since.
So what do you think, John? How did you rate it?
Important to understand. I think the really important thing is there are many people out there building on Llama, and if they do in fact decide that they have to go closed, and there's a movement toward that, and I think the strategy leader there, as far as we can tell, is Jan LeCun. Jan has gone for open, and and I think that the market's starting to say, hey, look, maybe closed is a better alternative at this stage of industry development. And Wong certainly is going for closed. So I'd say important, not essential. But if you're building on Llama models, you have to pay attention to this.
Yeah, so Meta is actually, kudos to them. Zuckerberg specifically opened this open source movements of LLM. Otherwise, we wouldn't be having this escalation, I think, that quickly. So, but he doesn't commit to everything closed or everything open. He's saying some open, some closed. So we'll see what develops. What did you think about this, Alden?
Yeah, this is important. And, right now, Zuckerberg has so much money that he can bet on both, right? He can have guys like Jan LeCun follow the open source model and then have Alexander Wang. That's what he does, right? Like he had Facebook and he bought WhatsApp and then he bought Instagram and then, he can put his eggs in many baskets.
That's
so,
sure.
And if the super intelligence requires it to be closed source, then so be it. That's but it's important because anytime somebody throws 100 billion at something, hopefully something happens.
I see.
Yeah, amazing. I think Ashish's point is really important one here in terms of DeepSeek, undercut Meta's advantage. Yes, the article is speculative. Yes, for sure, Ashish. But that I think notion of where the economic power is going to be, is very interesting.
Okay,
Yeah,
on this one, Paul.
Yeah, I think a couple other dynamics. I mean, I think one is it's very clear after 2 years that the leading closed source model has remained the leading closed source model here. So if you're an investor and really believe in that, I think you would give a premium to closed source models, or some investors would. So which would give you more capital and better ways to hire talent here. And the other thing I heard one of the arguments, and I think clearly, well, look what's happened in the last 6 months with the Chinese models from DeepSeek and the 2 or 3 other recent ones here. They are on fire on the open source one, and they're kicking Meta's ass everywhere from every indication we're seeing here. So, I think one open question is, can US even compete in the open source arena? And in the last 6 months, the answer is no. So I think from a trajectory standpoint, it's certainly something to watch, but it's obviously speculative. So I'm agreeing with Alden, but a lot of commentary there.
Yeah, I mean, the Chinese capital markets are so opaque. You never know. I mean, if I were the Chinese government, I would be telling these guys, "Hey, look, man, don't worry about losing a few billion, right? We want to undercut the American closed source models. So let's do it with some heavy duty open source." And if I was part of Chinese intelligence or military strategy, I'd also be saying, "Hey, look, we want to do with AI what the U.S. did with Microsoft and IBM, which is extend their and telecommunications, extend their intelligence networks around the world, right?"
Yeah.
But capital is aside, though. I think just in terms of capability, the open source Chinese models are incredibly powerful. And at least from the anecdotal stuff we've seen in the Wall Street Journal article and some analysis, they are gaining share outside of U.S. with enterprises.
Yes, and I also think they have, my impression is they have a much better developed intelligence network to steal intellectual property, which they've been doing, the entire time. And so those models will, not that our guys don't, I guess, but, those models will continue to improve in addition to their, the quality and the coverage on investment.
Yeah, but I'm sorry, John, finish. Yes.
No, I was just going to say, I mean, you look, this is mercantilism, right? And they're going heavy on this, and they got to win on this. So,
Yeah, but Paul, to your point about gaining share around the world, for one reason is they're free. So it's essentially, if there's another model that is better than DeepSeek and other Chinese models, we can be gaining share, US meaning. So this is a very difficult, to Ashish's point, very difficult strategic decision for Meta and Mark Zuckerberg of how are you going to get that done, right? Have a good free model, but also a private one. I think he will go both ways.
Yeah, but outside Meta, though, no other of the U.S. labs are investing, $2 to $30 million a year in a top AI talent for open source models.
Yeah.
And IBM's not making any dents in this area either here, and they've got a bunch of open source models.
Yeah, that's true. Okay. All right. Important it is. Let's proceed.
Okay, the next one comes from Google and talks about a summer of security, empowering cyber defenders with AI.
Yes. John, what did you think about this one?
Optional. We had, like this is, they just talk about a bunch of, capabilities they have that are important ones in terms of, helping both some of them open source as well, helping organizations understand, how can they use agentic technology to help fight against hackers and so forth, and important security participation by Google in the security community here. So whether you have things like TimeSketch, which is their open source collaborative forensics platform, in their role at Black Hat, these are important things from a security perspective. But I just thought this is somebody in the security area said, hey, look, we gotta tell the world what we've been up to this summer.
And there are two conferences specifically on AI security, AI model security coming up. So this is in prep and positioning for those.
Yes, exactly. This is just this is marketing support material for the upcoming conferences.
Yeah, but kudos to them. Very orchestrated, pushing the envelope on security. I think I'm optional as well. But Alden, what did you think?
Yeah, as I think John summed it up well. Here is what we did this summer. So definitely optional.
Okay. Paul going optional, Ankash going optional. Any disagreements? All right. Optional it is. Let's proceed, Ankash.
Okay, the next one comes from artificialanalysis.com, and this is their AI adoption survey for H1 2025.
Interesting data from 1,000 plus enterprises. What did you think about this, Alden?
Yeah, I would mark this somewhere between important and essential. AI leaders need to make decisions, and this is exactly the sort of survey that helps guide directional data, right? So I didn't get a chance to look at the full 27 pages, but it was really good to see like where the winds are blowing and the trends, because at the end of the day, people need to make decisions. They need to make decisions about build versus buy. They need to make decisions about where the AI should be deployed first. Should it be in engineering? Should it be in support? Should it be in sales? So lots of really good data on this side, and some surprises as well. Like I was quite surprised to see that I think it was 32% of people are still building, and 2025 is supposed to be the year that things get down to business rather than sitting around building. So that was an interesting number to see.
I was surprised. Thank you, Alden. I was surprised. Actually, the adoption score is 45%. That's a little high versus other sources that were reporting it around 10 to 30, depending who you ask. So what did you think about this, John?
Yeah, I was going to mark it essential for the reasons that Alden said about, look, if you're an AI leader, you got to understand what's going on. I think you have to, look at it a little bit with a grain of salt, because that those 1,000 users, we don't know how they recruited them, and we do know that their roles and so forth in organizations. And there's some surprising stuff here, unless engineering and R&D includes software, which probably does. But in terms of expected internal AI use cases, the fact fact that it's almost double customer support and success. We're not seeing that anyplace else. In terms of the use of technology, that's a few pages in. And then this notion of there's some sloppy I say sloppy, perhaps they're well defined, I just didn't understand it. Things like key challenges when facing and using AI, intelligence. Well, what the heck does that mean? Does that mean right answer or whatever? But
sounds like accuracy.
Yeah, and so, but it's got interesting stuff in here. I mentioned before the notion that Mistral's losing market share according to them, which I think is important to understand. The thing that Paul was saying, OpenAI continues to lead. Google, according to this thing, is grabbing tons of market share, and I can believe that in terms of anecdotal, confirmation of that and the importance of the Chinese model. So no question, essential. Good data, like with any data, take it with a grain of salt, but not too much salt, not enough salt to ruin the meal.
Yeah, I was puzzling over R&D and engineering taking the lion's share of the money, and then I actually affiliated with developing new products and new capabilities for the company. So if that's the case, that's actually a good indication. Paul, what did you think?
1,000% essential for everything we said. Time star leaders are time stars. Great visuals here. I think it gives a lot of directional trends that are very consistent with what we're seeing in our GAI Insights community and the product briefings we're doing for our buyer's guide. So definitely essential. And Alden, I really like your emphasis on AI leaders needing to make decisions. And I think this is the reality here, is because the leaders are getting further ahead. And these next set of early adopters can't just diddly-daddly around. And I'm seeing a lot of companies still doing that. And those days are over if you want to be in the top quartile.
Yeah, another interesting point to our previous discussion about Meta is there's an indicator that more enterprises are willing to use Chinese model, provided they're hosted outside of China.
Correct.
And so, and they're using them, and that's also, there's a data point in here. Okay, essential it is. Ankaj, okay with essential?
Yes, Luda.
Okay, great. Essential it is. Let's proceed.
Okay, the next one comes from Liquid AI, and Liquid AI has launched some exciting new products called Leap and Apollo, the easiest way to build with on-device AI.
Right. This is a crowded market, and on LLMs on edge, and this is also a product announcement. So all begs for optional. However, I rated it as important because this is actually a new category of LLMs, and it's on edge. It doesn't require anything other than I installed it this morning. It actually works, and the latency is non-existent. It's very speedy, and it's fully local, doesn't require the internet. And it has the models embedded, but you could actually adjust the models, the ones that you want to use, other than the liquid model. So I thought it's pushed the LLMs on edge to another level. That's why I'm giving it important. But interested in hearing what others thought. What did you think about this, Alden?
Yeah, this is super interesting, especially if it can run on small devices like Raspberry Pis. So Liquid AI is certainly attacking a nice market. Like, I'm guessing that they are attacking hardware devices, like body cams or small devices connected without being connected to the internet. So if it works, if the accuracy is good, if they can make it multimodal and things like that, really, really interesting stuff.
Vivek is asking how they're making money on it. So they announced, I'm sorry, they announced two things. They announced Leap and Apollo. Apollo is a free version that you can download on your mobile and play with it. And Leap is a developer platform. That's how they're making money, and it's not free. But it is a similar thing. You can develop things on the edge and deploy your own applications.
Yeah, for me, I was going to give this super optional, early days. I agree with you, context space. I do want to nominate Liquid AI and their marketing department as the people who should have the rights to name every single product in this category. I mean, GPT-4, 040, it's just like stupid land on the naming conventions. And these guys are very clean, leap. Okay, that's the environment for Liquid. I get it. Totally, it's beautiful.
Yeah. Paul, there's optional important here. What do you think?
Definitely optional, but I do want to highlight Alden's thing that this category of on-device AI is a really important category, and it gets mushed up with small large language models, with 99% aren't on device here. So on device, highly energy efficient is a really important category for cars and IoT and everything else. And they're pushing there's certainly R&D with a fundamentally different architecture than the transformer market, but for this discussion, optional.
Yeah, for me, I mean, and we should put together, some predictions going forward. On device is going to be, I think starting in the fall, it's going to be a tremendous amount of action there. Getting in the field probably in the beginning of the new year. This thing we're going to talk about in a second with Trump, the relationship between energy and intelligence is going to be huge. But this is one of those mega trends for the next 18 months, I think.
Right. Okay, so I'm hearing nobody wants to agree with my importance. So, okay, optional.
Luna, now you feel the power much more when.
No, I think
Luda, I want to make one point. We haven't seen any platform focused on just implementing small language models that are on device till now in the past 1.5 years, right? So definitely important development for me.
Yeah.
All right, one support voice.
Well, so Mistral doesn't have a development environment that supports mobile?
So I
don't think so, John.
No.
Okay.
And I actually did a competitive ask of Perplexity on that, right, before the call today. No,
okay. I can support importance for that.
No, and that's why I said it's a leap, and it's the only one that you can download free, and it's actually contained and works, and no latency. That's incredible.
All right, Zach, you get support here, Luda.
Okay.
Well, one other comment. I think Microsoft's Psi might have a small model that they're pushing on a device here. One thing I do want to note is that Liquid AI.
They have models, but they don't have the development environment.
And they don't. You need a lot of development to put them on. That's the difference. Yeah. Here, you don't have any development needed. No, zero. See, that's the difference.
And the important thing is, did Microsoft do it as a real business unit, or was it like some research lab that got a prototype?
It's not a
because
product.
Microsoft goes out a lot of these prototypes.
Yeah,
right.
Thanks.
Whereas Liquid is doing it.
One other quick thing, Lud, if I may, they are part of the our buyer's guide that we're finishing up here. So they're one of the 30 vendors we briefed, and they're making a lot of things. I think other things notable about them, they're sitting inside of MIT or right at Kendall Square, which has a lot of physical device robots energy over in the whole Boston area here. So they got a nice, not only is a dedicated unit, Alden, they're actually in a city that's also very interested in physical robots.
Yeah, see them power all the robots that all the other groups are doing. I think this is an interesting intersection of acceleration of technology here. Okay, important it is. Let's proceed.
Okay, the last one that we have for today comes from Donald Trump, and he has announced billions in investments to make Pennsylvania an AI hub.
Yes, Ankash, could you please summarize what the announcements were?
Sure, Luda. So basically, $90 billion of announcements, $90 billion of investment announcement was made by private companies in an event, which was the Pennsylvania Energy and Innovation Summit. So companies like Blackstone and First Energy, they committed close to $40 billion for that. And I think it's an important announcement given the burgeoning energy requirements of these large language models.
Yeah, they're pushing nukes hard. In addition, but there's another thing here going on here too, which is that he's doing old style politics. Two of the plants they think they're going to bring back online are coal based, and so this is the Trump administration's deep commitment to fossil fuels as well as nuclear. And obviously in a state and a location in a state that makes a difference. So this 90 billion, I think, is good politics.
Okay, so you rated John
Important.
Important. Okay, going important. Paul, Alden, disagree?
No, it's important.
Okay, important it is.
And when it comes to PR, like nobody can beat Trump, not even liquid AI. So
Well, the problem with this announcement is it's the sound of one hand clapping. Okay, I can make capacity available if I drive away the geniuses and the research that drive that. This is the clapping you get, right?
Yeah. Okay, all right. As Ankash prepares the scorecard, any announcements? Paul, John, Alden?
Go ahead, John.
I just want to say that one of the things that our audience should understand is that we're really starting to get with people who are in deployment and what those budgets and dynamics look like in this token explosion. So the near term stuff, and Alden can speak to this too, because he's seen it in his firm, I'm sure, is that as we get into the agentic world, which we are in certain areas very deeply, there's a bunch of fluff, but there's a bunch of stuff that's really happening. We're going to see primary demand, and this is where it goes back to the Trump thing, primary demand for silicon intelligence like we've never seen before in the history of humankind. And that starts from something as simple as just a simple data query, which used to be me with a interacting with an SQL database. And now we have transactions going back and forth where it's very chatty. The model's trying to figure out what's going on, it's checking, things like that. That's primary demand increase. And then just as you sent these agents out to do stuff, whether they're passive, semi-passive, active, semi-active, token use, intelligence consumption is going like this in companies that are actually deploying this stuff. And that's something everybody needs to understand. This is not a simple linear, in a certain way, the power laws were easier, right? In terms of training, that you could predict it better. I predict a huge token explosion that people should be aware of.
It's probably exponential. Yeah. Okay. Paul, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, it's just a square John's paragraph, and that's got two implications for AI leaders. So many of the vendors have moved to non-consumption pricing in the last 6 months because the customer doesn't want price hiccups in some of these things here. That may break over time because at some point this thing's up. And the other end is the Trump announcement called, because of this token explosion, and here it's all about demand, which is all about data centers. And we're going to continue to see just massive announcements on the U.S. expanding its grid and its competitiveness with China here. On the announcement side, we really had a good learning lab on Monday night reviewing Lovable by Chris Brock, and that's now on our YouTube channel.
Okay, thank you. So for today, we had one essential on AI adoption survey, 4 importance, and 2 optional. Thank you all for listening. Thank you, Alden, for joining. Always great to have you. And thank you, Vivek, Ram, and Valda for commenting, and really appreciate that. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye now.
thanks, guys.
Thanks, Alden. Good to see you.